This is what I call the tutorial, or the staying after school if the class didn't make sense. I go through these materials from a very intuitive place, and I already know the information. And so I thought it would be useful for me to do one recording as kind of a standby if you listened and you're like, what is he talking about? So there are two major symbols that I've discussed in the very beginning of the class. The first is the Azoth, which is this circle, and the second is the three elements. And I'm going to go through the circle first, and then I'm going to touch on the three elements. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the circle is that there's this guy looking at you with a triangle around his head. Eventually what we're going to do, once we go through all the conceptualization, the whole class is not all this conceptualizing and all these symbols. That's just to get you familiar with it. But mainly what we're going to be doing is getting in touch with energies as we look into the eyes of the man in the drawing, or you can replace it with your own photo or a mirror. The next thing you might notice as you go out from the man in the middle is this star-like object with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so this explains how we go through the chart. Each of these steps are what they call operations that we go through. And you'll notice that in the first two circles, the crow is black. And that means you're totally not purified. You're so far away from purified. And so in the first, you just get in touch with your own mortality. There's a skull there, and you get in touch with no ego and nothing working out, and why am I doing this darn chart, and what's this guy talking about? Go through all those kind of emotions. That's the beginning of our journey, which is why alchemy was never very popular. It didn't have a lot to sell to the people. Actually, the way things are. And the way things are is you're going to end up a skull. Probably you'll be buried, but you may not be buried. You may just be a skull picked at by a crow. And you face up with that. And we'll get deeper into that as the course goes. I know it's not very appealing, but this is how we can begin to create purification. You can't purify unless you're willing to face all of the things that are not purified. Now, why in the heck would you want to purify anyway? Life's going okay. Well, is life going okay? That is the question I have for you, because if life's going okay, then keep going the way you're going. But I think what you're probably finding, which I think what 99.9% of people are finding, is they're chasing after something, or they're running away from something. And then you get to something you're looking for, and it doesn't work out. It's not satisfactory. It's somehow disappointing, or there's something bigger and better. That's what's going on. And if you pay attention to what your thoughts are, it's just flipping from desire, oh, I need this, I want that, a laundry list of things that you need. Conditions to happiness, or a list of things that you don't want. Oh, if I could just get rid of those things, then I'll be happy. And that's what life is until you transcend. And the way to transcend doesn't have to be purification, but this has worked for hundreds of years. They were not turning lead into gold, people. They were turning themselves into spiritual gold. They were awakening themselves. Okay. Anyway, moving right along. So step 2, you'll see the black crow is picking at the reflection or the residue. And what this is you're still kind of probably identified with the black crow, but maybe you're starting to identify as the white bird. You're not quite sure what you are, but you're allowing everything to come up. You're allowing things to manifest. And then in the third phase, you see that there are two white birds picking away at things. And so you're beginning to really accept more and more. You're letting the feelings and the emotions and the past come up without story. Just energetically we're dealing with these things. These three circles are all yang, very masculine. That's what our society is like. And the alchemists saw where things were going, saw what society was becoming like. Once we started using an alphabet, actually, we started on the path towards left brain dominance, and that's when we started to get graspy at things. Then the top, number 4, two birds lifting a crown. That's where you're unified, you're yin and you're yang, everything seems great. It's an awakening or a spiritual experience. You see the little winged figure on top. But then, bada bing, bada boom, suddenly you don't feel so great anymore. You're in the yin phase, but you don't really have that same connectiveness. And you can't go back to where you were, but you don't know where to go. So you're these two birds sitting in a tree, waiting for an egg to hatch. This is surrender and devotion, waiting for divine grace, if you want to call it that. You can call it whatever you want. Names are not important here. And then you see the unicorn. The legend of the unicorn is that it lies down for the virgin. It'll run away from the hunter forever, but the virgin, the pure one, it's going to say hello. And then the final stage, number 7, is the being rising from the grave. And you can call that being reborn, but it's basically a state of connectivity. So that's an overview of the circle. And then the 3 elements I mentioned, salt and sulfur and mercury, quicksilver. And alchemists tend to focus, in the alchemical literature, they tend to focus on what these supposedly represent. But what they're saying that they represent isn't exactly accurate. What's actually more important is where they overlap. You're always having an overlap of 2 of these qualities, and one of them is missing, unless you're in the middle of the circle. The circle is all concentric and all. Then you're at a state of peace. So that's kind of what we're doing in the beginning of the course. Hope that made sense. Feel free to email me if you have any questions.